This is the story of how I, Private John O'Brien, nicknamed Red, a freckle-faced, carrot-topped kid from South Boston, found myself in the very heart of the Second World War. I was only 21, but I already carried the weight of a lifetime. The freezing Massachusetts winters when I hauled fish crates on the docks, breathing the sharp Atlantic salt. Pearl Harbor, which flipped my world upside down like a wave capsizes a rowboat. And North Africa, where under the merciless Tunisian sun I learned how to shoot, how to dig a hole fast, and how to bury friends. I was part of the Big Red One, the 1st Infantry Division, the spearhead that always went in first. And now Sicily waited for us. Operation Husky. To me, it wasn't just a map with arrows and X's. It was a one-way ticket to hell, where every heartbeat could be the last. Yet somewhere inside I still hoped to find meaning in all the madness. July 1943. Bizerte, Tunisia. The heat hangs like a wet wool blanket. The pier asphalt melts under our boots, and down in the holds of our ancient troop ship, USS Orizaba, the air reeks of sweat, diesel, and that unmistakable cocktail of fear and excitement that always comes right before the shooting starts. We stand shoulder to shoulder on deck. Thousands of us, kids from every corner of America. Irish, Italians, Poles, black guys from Harlem, corn-fed farm boys from Kansas, all suddenly brothers. In front of us stretches the greatest fleet any of us has ever imagined. More than 2,000 ships as far as the eye can see. Battleships with 16-inch guns, cruisers, transports, landing craft stuffed with men and machines. It looks like something out of the Bible. An iron exodus ready to cross the sea and bring tyrants to their knees. On the evening of July 8th, something happened that I will never forget. General George S. Patton, Jr. himself came aboard. I was in the front row and saw everything. Mirror-polished riding boots, chrome leather gloves, helmet gleaming with 3 silver stars, and those famous pearl-handled revolvers swinging on his hips like a Wild West gunslinger. His face was red as raw meat, eyes burning with pure fire. He climbed onto a crate of 105mm shells, cleared his throat, and started roaring so loud the gulls shut up, and the diesel engines seemed to fade. "Men, listen to me. In 36 hours you will be on that goddamn Sicilian beach, and I will not tolerate a single son of a bitch dying on the sand like a coward. You will die, if you have to die. 10, 20, 50 miles inland, with German blood on your bayonets and Italian guts in your teeth. We didn't come here to beg. We came to conquer. You are the finest soldiers the world has ever seen, and I know that because I personally forged you in the African desert. We are going to crush these krauts and wops like cockroaches under our boots. And if any man among you falters, by God, I will shoot him myself. Now, go forward and show the world what American fury, American strength, and American will looks like." For one heartbeat, there was total silence, thick enough to chew. Then the deck exploded. We screamed ourselves hoarse, pounded each other on the back, tears running down dirty faces, not from fear, but from that wild, pure surge that turns boys into men. In that moment, we believed every word. We were immortal. Patton didn't just give a speech. He lit souls on fire. That same night, while the storm was already gathering, I met a paratrooper from the 505th Regiment, 82nd Airborne. His name was Tony Martinelli, an Italian-American from New Jersey, with a winged sword tattoo on his shoulder. We smoked together on the fantail, cupping cigarettes against the wind. He told me they were jumping first wave at 22:45. "We take the bridges around Gela, so you dog faces don't get pinned on the beach," he grinned. I asked if he was scared. He stared into the dark for a long time, then pulled a creased photo from his breast pocket. A pretty young wife and 2 tiny kids. "Scared? It's worse than that, Red. It's like jumping into the mouth of hell hoping the parachute remembers its job. But if we don't do it, they'll slaughter you guys in the surf. So we jump. For them." His handshake was ice cold. I never saw Tony again. At 22:45, the sky split open. Hundreds of C-47s thundered low overhead, engines droning like angry hornets. We waved and yelled, "Good luck," as they vanished into the black. Later we learned the storm scattered them across half of Sicily. 23 planes shot down by our own nervous Navy gunners, who mistook them for Luftwaffe. Hundreds drowned before their chutes ever opened. Tony was probably one of them. At midnight, they started lowering us into the Higgins boats. The storm hit like God's own wrath. 45-knot wind, 12-foot seas, green water pouring over the gunwales. The boats swung on the davits like drunk acrobats. I almost cracked my skull when ours slammed against Orizaba's hull. Inside, 36 men instead of 30, everyone, soaked before we even cast off. 70 pounds of gear on every back, rifle, ammo, grenades, K-rations, entrenching tool, gas mask, first aid kit. Billy Crawford, my Texas machine gunner, was already puking over the side. Frank Isaacs, Brooklyn Jew and barman, tried to joke. "If we drown, at least we won't have to eat any more of that canned horse meat." His voice cracked. Sergeant McGee, an old Irishman scarred from the Great War, walked the gunwale handing out swigs from his flask. "Hold fast, lads," he told me, clapping my shoulder. "We're the same blood, you and I." I nodded, but my guts were twisted tight. I pulled out the photo of my little sister Mary, kissed it, wrapped it in cellophane, and tucked it inside my shirt next to my heart. Mom had made me memorize prayers as a kid. Now I whispered, "Hail Mary," while the boat bucked like a bronco. Water flooded in, boots, salt stung eyes. Some prayed aloud in Latin, some cursed in 5 languages, some just stared into the dark, clutching their rifles. All I could think was, just don't let me drown before the fight starts. A bullet is cleaner than this hungry, freezing sea that wants to swallow us whole. Somewhere ahead, the first battleship salvos were already thundering. Sicily was waiting, and our hour of truth was coming fast. The ramp dropped with a metallic scream, and the sea tried to kill us one last time. I jumped into chest-deep water that felt like ice after the African heat. 50 pounds of gear dragged me down. The sand sucked at my boots like it wanted to keep me forever. All around me men were stumbling, cursing, praying. Tracers floated lazily overhead, red and green, beautiful, until you realized they were trying to tear you in half. 4:37, July 10th, 1943. Red Beach, Gela. The sky was the color of old pewter. The only light came from burning landing craft and the muzzle flashes of Italian machine guns that finally woke up. I hit the sand crawling, heart hammering so hard I thought it would burst. My squad, 12 of us originally, now 9 spread out in the dunes. Billy was already setting up his .30 caliber on a wrecked Italian pillbox. Frank was beside me, bar across his arms, whispering Yiddish curses. We expected a slaughter. Instead, we got silence, then confusion. The Italian coastal troops, Division 206, were still half asleep or drunk on last night's wine. Their first bursts went high. We heard the bullets snap overhead like angry bees. Then the Navy opened up, USS Savannah and Boise, 6-inch guns firing over open sights, turned the ridgeline into the 4th of July. Concrete bunkers disintegrated. One shell landed so close the shockwave knocked me flat and filled my mouth with sand. We moved inland in rushes, 10 yards, drop, fire, crawl. The beach was a junkyard. Shattered boats, burning DUKWs, bodies floating face down in the surf. I saw a kid from D Company, maybe 18, sitting against a tetrahedron obstacle holding his guts in with both hands, crying for his mother in Polish. I wanted to help, but McGee shoved me forward. "Keep moving, Red. He's already gone." By 6 a.m., we had punched a hole 200 yards deep. The dunes gave way to salt marshes, and then the outskirts of Gela itself. White houses glowing in the rising sun, stinking of fish and jasmine. The Italians started surrendering in job lots. One sergeant with a ridiculous plume on his hat walked toward us with 30 men, rifles reversed, singing some marching song. We took 4,000 prisoners before lunch. They were happy to be alive, handing out cigarettes and bottles of grappa, calling us liberatori. One old man kissed my muddy boots and wept. But the real war was waiting inland. Around 10 o'clock, the Hermann Göring Division announced itself. A flight of Ju-87 Stukas screamed down, sirens wailing like banshees. Bombs walked across the beach. One landed 20 yards away and flipped an LCVP end over end. Then came the tanks, Panzer IVs, and a few Tigers, rolling out of the olive groves east of Piano Lupo. Their first 88mm shells turned Shermans into torches. I watched a tank commander try to climb out, uniform on fire, screaming until the ammo cooked off, and the turret blew 50 feet into the air. We dug shallow scrapes in the soft earth and waited. The sun climbed, and the heat became a living thing, 110 degrees Fahrenheit by noon. Dust stuck to sweat and blood. Water was already gone. We drank from canteens warm as piss. Billy's machine gun jammed twice from the sand. Frank kept muttering, "Not here, God. Not like this." At 13:20, the Navy saved our lives again. Destroyers came in so close, you could see the sailors on deck. Their 5-inch guns fired point blank. Every shell screamed over our heads and slammed into the German armor. One Tiger took 3 direct hits and simply vanished in a tower of flame. The counterattack broke. The plain was littered with burning tanks and bodies. The smell, sweet pork and burning rubber, never leaves you. By dusk, we owned Gela. The streets were narrow, twisted, perfect for ambushes. But the fight had gone out of the Italians. We slept that night in a schoolyard, using desks for pillows, while medics worked under red flashlights and the wounded cried for morphine. I found a crate of oranges in a courtyard and ate 6, juice running down my chin like blood. I wrote Mary's name on a wall with charcoal. Red was here. Then I cried myself to sleep, too tired to feel ashamed. We had the beachhead. We had the town. But the island was still 80 miles long, and the Germans were just getting started. July 11th broke hotter than any day in Tunisia. The sun rose like a furnace door opening, and by 8 o'clock, the temperature was already 115 degrees Fahrenheit, in the shade that didn't exist. We moved out of Gela at first light, heading east along the coastal plain toward Piano Lupo, and the high ground the Germans were turning into a fortress. The Hermann Göring Panzer Division and the 15th Panzer Grenadiers had regrouped overnight. They hit us with everything at once: tanks, half-tracks, infantry in perfect drill, screaming their Nazi slogans, like it still meant something. Their 80s were murder. One round landed 30 yards away, and the concussion ruptured eardrums. The next turned a Sherman into a Roman candle. The crew never had a chance. I watched the driver try to crawl out, clothes burning, skin sliding off like wet paper. We fought in the olive groves, Century-old trees shredded to splinters. The ground was powder dry. Every shell burst raised a dust cloud that choked you worse than gas. I fired my Garand until the wood stock burned my hands and the bolt locked open on an empty clip. Billy's .30 caliber hammered beside me until the barrel glowed dull red. Frank worked his bar like a man possessed, shouting, "For my mother in Warsaw!" until a German sniper put a round through his throat. He dropped without a sound, eyes still open, blood bubbling. I dragged him behind a stone wall and closed his lids with shaking fingers. I never told his family how he died. The heat was a second enemy. Canteens empty by noon. Men collapsed from heat stroke, faces purple, tongues swollen. We drank water from radiators of wrecked tanks, warm and tasting of antifreeze. Dysentery started that afternoon. Half the platoon shat themselves in their foxholes, too weak to move. Malaria followed the next night. Mosquitoes rose from the marshes in black clouds. On July 12th, the Germans tried again, this time with tigers. 6 of the monsters rolled down the road from Nishimi, 56 tons each, guns that could kill at 2 miles. Our 37mm anti-tank guns bounced rounds off like pebbles. Navy again. Cruisers and destroyers raced in so close their hulls scraped bottom, firing over open sights. One tiger took a 6-inch shell in the belly and brewed up. The explosion was so violent the turret landed upside down in a fig tree. But we still lost 20 tanks and hundreds of men. I killed my first German up close on the 13th. He was 19, blonde, terrified, hiding in a barn with a potato masher grenade. I shot him center mass twice before he could pull the pin. He sat down slowly, looked surprised, then toppled. His eyes were the same blue as the sea we had crossed. I threw up behind the barn until there was nothing left but bile. That same day, we found the Biscari massacre. 73 Italian prisoners, hands tied, shot in a ditch. Some of our guys from the 45th Division. Nobody talked about it afterward, but we all knew. War had started peeling the humanity off us, layer by layer. By July 15th, we were veterans. Beards, sunken eyes, uniforms stiff with salt and blood. We moved north through burning wheat fields and villages that cheered one minute and sniped the next. The civilians were caught in the middle. Old women pressing peaches and wine into our hands, children begging for candy, while their sons in Italian uniforms surrendered or died in the same ditch. The worst was the smell. Cordite, rotting bodies, human shit, burnt olive wood. It got into your clothes, your hair, your dreams. At night, the screaming Mimis, Nebelwerfers, howled overhead, and the ground shook like Judgment Day. Sleep was impossible. We lived on Benzedrine and hate. I wrote letters I never mailed, told my mother I was fine, told Mary I loved her, told God I wasn't sure he was listening anymore. On the 16th, we took a hill outside Vittoria, and I found Frank's blood-soaked bar. I carried it the rest of the campaign. The stock still had his fingerprints in the dried blood. We were winning, they said. The beachhead was secure, but every yard cost a pint of American blood and a piece of our souls. By the 3rd week of July, the island had become a furnace with no off switch. We marched north and west on feet wrapped in rags because our boots had rotted away. Blisters on blisters, skin peeling in sheets. The roads were white dust 6 inches deep. Every truck, tank, and mule raised a cloud that never settled. You breathed dust, ate dust, shat dust. The sun was a white-hot coin nailed to a sky the color of brass. 120 degrees Fahrenheit by noon. Men dropped like flies. Heat stroke, malaria, dysentery. We left them under olive trees with a canteen and a prayer. Patton was everywhere, standing in his open jeep, helmet liner tilted back, scarf flapping, screaming at us to move faster than Montgomery. He wanted Palermo. He wanted glory. He wanted to be the first Allied general into Messina. We didn't care about glory anymore. We just wanted it to end. We rolled west like an avalanche. Licata fell on D+2, Agrigento on D+5, Castelvetrano, Marsala, Trapani. The Italian army simply evaporated. Whole regiments stacked arms and marched into our cages singing. Civilians came out of the hills carrying babies and white flags, kissing our hands, pressing bread, wine, figs, tomatoes into our arms. Old women wept and called us liberatori. Little girls threw flowers. For a few hours it almost felt like the movies. Then a sniper would fire from a church tower, and the spell broke. The Germans fought like cornered wolves. Every ridge, every dry riverbed, every stone village became a little Verdun. At Caltanissetta, we attacked uphill against machine guns in ancient Norman castles. At Enna, the Hermann Göring boys counterattacked with tigers and fresh panzer grenadiers. We stopped them with artillery and naval guns and pure stubbornness, but the cost was brutal. My company went in with 180 men. We came out with 61. Troina was the worst, August 1st to 6th. A mountain town perched on a 4,000-foot ridge, streets so steep they were staircases. The Germans had turned it into a fortress, minefields, barbed wire, 88s in caves, snipers in every window. We attacked 6 times in 6 days. Each assault ended the same way. Up the goat paths under mortar fire, through vineyards that exploded with bouncing betties, into houses where Germans waited with schmeissers and potato mashers. I lost count of how many times I threw myself flat while the world erupted around me. On the 4th assault, Billy took a burst across the legs. I dragged him into a cellar where an old Sicilian woman was hiding with her daughters. He looked up at me, teeth chattering from shock, and said, "Tell my ma I tried, Red." He died before the medics arrived. I closed his eyes and took his Stetson. Still have it. At night, the mountain shook with Nebelwerfers screaming mimes that sounded like the devil ripping tin roofs. We slept in holes scraped in solid rock, sharing body heat because the temperature dropped to near freezing after sunset. Rats the size of cats ran over us. Lice owned us. Everyone had the gala trots so bad we cut the seats out of our trousers. On August 6th, Troina finally cracked. We went in at dawn behind a rolling barrage that turned the ridge into the moon. I remember stepping over German bodies still clutching their rifles, faces black from blast, eyes cooked white. The town was rubble, not one wall left standing higher than my waist. An old priest met us in the ruins of his church, holding a crucifix and crying, "Basta! Basta! Enough!" After Troina, there was no real resistance left, only rear guards and mines. We raced east along the northern coast road. Cefalù, Santo Stefano, Barcelona. Civilians lined the route 10 deep, throwing flowers, wine, peaches. Someone started singing, "Over there," and the whole column joined in, voices cracking. I cried and didn't care who saw. Patton beat Montgomery by 36 hours. We rolled into Messina on the morning of August 17th, 1943. Dirty, bearded, half-naked, triumphant, hollow. The streets were eerily quiet. Across the narrow strait we could see the Italian mainland, so close you could almost touch it. But the Germans were already gone. Kesselring had pulled off a miracle. 40,000 men, 9,800 vehicles, 47 tanks, 94 guns, all ferried across in broad daylight under our bombers and battleships. We watched their last barges disappear into the morning haze and felt the victory turn to ash in our mouths. I sat on the sea wall with what was left of my squad, smoking the last pack of Lucky Strikes on the island. Sergeant McGee, now the only original NCO left, passed around a bottle of grappa somebody found in a cellar. Nobody spoke for a long time. Then McGee said quietly, 39 days, for a pile of rocks and a strait full of ghosts. The numbers came later. The big red one, 3,448 casualties, more than we lost in all of Tunisia. Total Allied losses, over 25,000. Axis, roughly the same. Sicily was ours. Mussolini fell a week later. Italy quit in September. But the real war, the one that would chew up Europe for 2 more years, was just beginning. I shipped out for England in September with a Bronze Star. I never felt I earned. A Purple Heart for the shrapnel in my calf. And nightmares that still wake me 80 years later. I married my girl Eileen in '46, raised 4 kids, worked the docks again until my lungs gave out from all that Sicilian dust. But every summer, I drive to Revere Beach at dawn, sit in the same sand, and watch the sun come up over the same sea that tried to kill me in 1943. Sicily taught me 3 things I've never forgotten. 1. War is mostly terror, heat, boredom, and sudden death. 2. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's moving forward while you're still shaking. 3. Freedom is paid for in full, in advance, by young men who almost never get to spend it. This is for my grandchildren and theirs. So they know what their grandfather looked like when he was 21 and thought he was immortal, and what he looked like when he learned he wasn't. We came, we saw, we bled, and somehow we won. John Red O'Brien, Private First Class, Sergeant 1st Infantry Division, U.S. Army, Sicily, July 10th to August 17th, 1943. Boston, Massachusetts. Written in the year 2003, 60 years after the fact, God bless every boy who never came home.